Everyone in the neighborhood knew her as the girl who walked with her head down. She cleaned houses. She spoke little. She never complained. But one evening, while cleaning a billionaire's mansion, she opened a door she was never meant to see. And from that moment, her life began to fall apart. Not because she was poor, but because she learned the truth. Her name was Ammara. She was 19, black, poor, invisible to the world. Every morning, she took 2 buses to clean homes that were not hers. One house paid more than the rest, a quiet mansion on the edge of the city. The owner never spoke to her, and one room was always locked. Until one day, it was not. The alarm rang at 4:30 in the morning. Not because Ammara liked waking up early. Not because she had somewhere important to go. It rang because the bus did not wait for poor people. Ammara opened her eyes slowly, staring at the cracked ceiling above her. A thin brown line ran from one corner of the room to the other, like the ceiling itself was tired of holding together. The room smelled like old walls and last night's rice. She did not move right away. Her body felt heavy. Her bones felt older than 19. For a moment, she lay still and listened. The building was quiet, except for the sound of someone coughing in the next apartment and the distant hum of traffic waking up. Somewhere below, a baby cried and then stopped. Ammara turned her head to the side. On the narrow bed beside hers, her mother lay curled under a thin blanket. Her breathing was uneven, slow, then fast, then slow again. Ammara watched her chest rise and fall. Every morning, this was her first fear, that one day the breathing would stop. She pushed the thought away and sat up carefully so the bed would not creak. The mattress was old and thin. Springs pressed against her back every night, but she had learned how to sleep around the pain. She slid her feet into worn sandals and stood. The floor was cold. The apartment was small. One room for sleeping. One tiny kitchen. A bathroom that smelled like rust and soap no matter how much she cleaned. She walked quietly to the kitchen and turned on the small light above the sink. It flickered once, then stayed on. The sink was full of dishes from last night. 1 pot, 2 plates, 1 cup with a crack down the side. She did not wash them yet. First she filled the kettle with water and placed it on the stove. She turned the knob slowly, listening for the familiar click. The flame caught, small and blue. While the water heated, she opened the cupboard. There was half a bag of rice, a can of beans, a small jar of salt. That was all. That was all. She closed the cupboard and leaned against it for a moment. Rent was due 3 days ago. The landlord had knocked twice already. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He only smiled in a way that made her stomach tighten. Ammara poured a small amount of rice into a pot and rinsed it under the tap. The water ran cloudy, then clear. She placed the pot on the stove and covered it. When the kettle whistled, she turned off the flame and poured the hot water into 2 chipped cups. She carried 1 cup back to the bedroom. Her mother's eyes were open now, staring at the wall. "Mama," Ammara whispered. Her mother turned her head slowly. Her face was thinner than it used to be. Her cheeks had sunk inward, and her skin looked dry, like it needed more than water to survive. "You are up early again," her mother said. Ammara forced a small smile. The bus. she replied. She placed the cup on the small table beside the bed. Her mother reached for it, her hand shaking slightly. Ammara watched closely, ready to help if she dropped it. "I wish you did not have to work so hard," her mother said. Ammara did not answer. She had learned that answering that question only led to silence. Her mother took a sip and sighed softly. "Did the landlord come again?" she asked. Ammara hesitated. "Yes," she said. Her mother closed her eyes. "I am sorry," she whispered. Ammara sat on the edge of the bed. "This is not your fault," she said quickly. "I will take extra shifts. I always do." Her mother opened her eyes again and looked at her. "You are too young for this life," she said. Ammara looked down at her hands. They were rough. Dry, small scars covered her fingers from years of scrubbing floors and washing dishes with cheap soap. She remembered a time when her hands were soft. That time felt like another life. She stood up and reached for her jacket. "I have to go," she said. "I will bring medicine after work." Her mother nodded slowly. "Be careful." "Yes, be careful," she said. Ammara walked to the door and paused. "Mama," she said quietly. "Yes, I love you." Her mother smiled faintly. "I know." Ammara stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind her. The hallway smelled like dust and old paint. The light above flickered, just like the one in their kitchen. She walked down the stairs, careful not to step on the broken edge of the third step. Someone had tripped there last winter and never complained. People here learned not to complain. Outside, the air was cold. The sky was still dark, a deep blue with no promise of sunrise yet. Ammara pulled her jacket tighter and walked toward the bus stop. She passed other people waiting. Some looked half asleep. Some stared at their phones. No one spoke. When the bus arrived, she climbed on and paid in coins. The driver did not look at her. She found a seat near the back and sat quietly. As the bus moved, she watched the city wake up. Bright buildings passed by, clean windows, cafes opening their doors. She wondered what it felt like to wake up in those places. She shook her head slightly. Wondering did not change anything. Her first job that day was in a small office building. She cleaned floors and emptied trash cans while people worked around her, stepping carefully so they would not look at her too long. By noon, her back ached. By afternoon, her arms burned. By evening, she headed to her last job, the mansion. It stood far from the city, quiet and tall, hidden behind iron gates and trees. She arrived just before sunset. The gate opened slowly when she pressed the button. Inside, everything was clean. Too clean. The kind of clean that felt cold. She changed into her uniform and began her work. She cleaned rooms larger than her entire apartment. She wiped tables that held nothing but silence. She dusted shelves filled with books that no one read. She never saw the owner, only his rules. Do not touch personal items. Do not enter locked rooms. Finish before midnight. She followed every rule because this job paid more than all the others. Because this job paid for medicine. Because this job kept them alive. By the time she finished, her feet ached and her head felt light. She took the last bus home. When she reached her building, the hallway light was off. She climbed the stairs in the dark. At her door, she froze. A folded paper was taped to it. Her heart dropped. She pulled it down slowly and unfolded it. Final notice. Her hands shook. She pressed the paper to her chest and leaned against the door. For a moment, she could not breathe. Then she unlocked the door and stepped inside. Her mother was awake, coughing softly. Ammara crossed the room quickly and knelt beside her. "I brought medicine," she said, holding up the small bag. Her mother looked relieved. "You did not eat," her mother said. "I will later," Ammara replied. She helped her mother take the medicine, then sat on the floor beside the bed. The paper lay forgotten in her pocket. That night, Ammara did not sleep. She stared at the ceiling again, counting the cracks. 1, 2, 3. Her life felt like that ceiling. Cracked. Holding on. Always one small shake away from falling apart. She thought about the locked room in the mansion. She did not know why. It was just a thought. A passing one. She pushed it away. Tomorrow would be the same. She dusted shelves filled with books that no one read. She never saw the owner. Only his rules. Do not touch personal items. Do not enter locked rooms. Finish before midnight. She followed every rule because this job paid more than all the others. Because this job paid for medicine. Because this job kept them alive. By the time she finished, her feet ached and her head felt light. She took the last bus home. When she reached her building, the hallway light was off. She climbed the stairs in the dark. At her door, she froze. A folded paper was taped to it. Her heart dropped. She pulled it down slowly and unfolded it. Final notice. Her hands shook. She pressed the paper to her chest and leaned against the door. For a moment, she could not breathe. Then she unlocked the door and stepped inside. Her mother was awake, coughing softly. Ammara crossed the room quickly and knelt beside her. "I brought medicine," she said, holding up the small bag. Her mother looked relieved. "You did not eat," her mother said. "I will later," Ammara replied. She helped her mother take the medicine, then sat on the floor beside the bed. The paper lay forgotten in her pocket. That night, Ammara did not sleep. She stared at the ceiling again, counting the cracks. 1, 2, 3. Her life felt like that ceiling, cracked, holding on, always one small shake away from falling apart. She thought about the locked room in the mansion. She did not know why. It was just a thought, a passing one. She pushed it away. Tomorrow would be the same. Wake early, work hard, come home tired. She did not know yet that tomorrow would be different. She did not know yet that her life was already moving toward a door she was never meant to open. Ammara did not plan to work in a mansion. Mansions were places she only saw in movies or from the bus window, hidden behind tall gates and trees that looked carefully trained to grow in silence. Her life did not move in straight lines. It moved in small turns, pushed by necessity, pulled by fear. The day she found the job began like every other day. She woke before the sun. She checked her mother's breathing. She washed her face in cold water. She stepped into the world with tired feet, but by the end of that day, something shifted. It started at a small cleaning agency near the bus station. The sign above the door was faded, the letters peeling away like they were ashamed to stay. Ammara had passed the building many times. She had never gone inside. That morning, she did. The waiting room smelled like cheap cleaner and old chairs. 3 women sat quietly, each holding a small bag or folder. No one spoke. They did not look at each other. Ammara took a seat near the wall. A woman behind the desk called names one by one. When she said Ammara's name, Ammara stood quickly and followed her into a small office. The manager was a thin woman with sharp eyes and tired patience. She looked at Ammara's papers. "You have experience," the woman said. "Yes," Ammara replied. "Houses, offices, night shifts." "Yes." The woman tapped her pen against the desk. "There is a private client," she said. "Very private," Ammara nodded. "Pays well," the woman continued. "More than our usual jobs." Ammara felt her heart tighten. "There are rules," the woman said. "I follow rules," Ammara replied without thinking. The woman studied her face. "Most people say that," she said. "Few mean it." She slid a paper across the desk. "Read." Ammara read slowly. No questions about the client. No contact outside hours. No guests. No photographs. No entry into restricted areas. Breaking any rule meant immediate termination. And no payment. Ammara swallowed. "I agree," she said. The woman raised an eyebrow. "You did not ask where the job is?" she said. Ammara looked down. "I need the work," she replied. The woman leaned back in her chair. "Good," she said, "because curiosity costs money in this job." She handed Ammara an address. "Tonight," she said. "Be there before sunset." Ammara folded the paper carefully and stood. As she left the office, she felt something she could not name. It was not hope. It was not fear. It was the feeling of stepping onto ground that might not hold. The bus ride took longer than usual. The city slowly changed around her. Tall buildings faded into quiet streets. Shops disappeared. Trees grew thicker. When she reached the gate, she thought she had made a mistake. The mansion did not announce itself loudly. It did not need to. Tall, iron gates stood open, silent and heavy. Beyond them, a long driveway curved through trees trimmed so perfectly they looked unreal. Ammara stood still. For a moment, she felt small in a way she had never felt before. She pressed the call button at the gate. A calm voice answered. "Name." "Ammara," she said. The gate opened. No greeting. No welcome. Just permission. She walked slowly toward the house, her footsteps soft against the gravel. The mansion was large, but quiet. No lights in most windows. No sound of life. A man met her at the door. He wore a dark suit and did not smile. "You are late," he said. Ammara checked her watch. She was early. "I am sorry," she said. He looked at her for a moment longer, then stepped aside. "Follow," he said. Inside, the air felt cooler, cleaner, like the house itself was holding its breath. The floors reflected light like mirrors. The walls were smooth without marks or frames. He led her to a small room near the back. "This is where you change," he said. "Uniform only." She nodded. "There are cameras," he added. "Not here. Everywhere else." She nodded again. "Rules?" he said. "Listen carefully." He spoke slowly. "You clean only the assigned areas. You do not open drawers. You do not read papers. You do not touch personal items." Ammara listened. "You do not enter locked rooms." He continued. "Ever." She felt a strange chill. "If you hear noise," he said, "you ignore it." She looked up at him. "Noise?" she asked before she could stop herself. His eyes hardened slightly. "Do you understand the rules?" he asked. "Yes," she said quickly. He handed her a key card. "This opens only what you need," he said. "Nothing more." She changed into the uniform. Black pants, white shirt, simple, clean. She tied her hair back and stepped out. He led her through the house. Room after room passed by. Large living areas, quiet offices, long hallways. Some doors were closed. Some were locked. He stopped near one door in the far hallway. "This door," he said, "is never to be opened." Ammara nodded. "Never," he repeated. "Yes," she said. "Even if unlocked," he added. She felt her chest tighten. "Yes." He looked at her again. Then he turned and walked away. Her work began. At first, the job felt unreal. She wiped surfaces that did not need wiping. She vacuumed floors that were already clean. The silence followed her everywhere. No television, no music, no voices, only the soft sound of her movements. As days passed, the mansion became familiar. Too familiar. She learned which rooms stayed cold, which windows faced the trees, which hallway lights flickered for half a second before staying on. She learned the rhythm of the house. She also learned the rules were not suggestions. Once, she found a small notebook left on a table. She froze. Her hands hovered above it. She stepped back without touching it. Later that day, the man in the suit stopped her. "You did well," he said. She did not ask how he knew. Another time, she arrived a few minutes early and stood near the entrance. A door down the hall opened briefly. She heard a sound, not a voice, not a step, something else. She did not look. She focused on the floor until the sound stopped. That night, she went home shaken. Her mother noticed. "You look pale," her mother said. "It is nothing," Ammara replied. She did not tell her mother about the house. She did not tell anyone. The money changed things. She paid part of the rent. She bought medicine without counting coins. She brought home food that did not come from cans, but the job came with a weight. Every night, as she cleaned, she felt watched, not by cameras, by something deeper. One evening, as she cleaned the hallway, she noticed the locked door again. It stood at the end, darker than the others. She passed it quickly, but the thought stayed. Why lock a room in a house this quiet? Why warn her so strongly? She told herself it was none of her business. Rules were rules. Weeks passed. The landlord stopped knocking. Her mother's coughing softened slightly. Ammara should have felt relief. Instead, she felt tension, because comfort can feel dangerous when it comes suddenly. One night, as she cleaned the office, she noticed something new. A small key card lay on the desk, not hers. Her heart began to race. She stood still. The rules echoed in her head. Do not touch personal items. She stepped back. Then she noticed the door at the end of the hallway. It was slightly open. She froze. That door was always closed, always locked. She stared at it from across the hall. The silence felt heavier. She told herself it was a mistake. Someone forgot. She should report it. She took one step forward, then stopped. The sound came again, soft, low. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She backed away slowly. She did not go near the door. She finished her work and left early. That night, she dreamed of doors. Doors opening. Doors closing. Doors she could not see behind. The next day, she returned. The door was closed again. Locked. Like nothing had happened. No one mentioned it. But something inside Ammara had changed. The mansion was no longer just a job. It was a question. And she was standing too close to the answer. Ammara told herself she was imagining things. Every night, as she moved through the mansion's long halls, she repeated that sentence in her head, like a prayer, like protection. The locked room was just a door. That was all. Yet no other door made her heart beat faster. No other door made her footsteps slow as she passed. It stood at the end of the hallway, darker than the rest, as if the light stopped short of touching it. The handle looked older, scratched, worn in a way that did not match the rest of the house. Once, as she wiped the wall nearby, her fingers brushed against the metal. It was cold, not the normal cold of metal, a deep, sharp cold that made her pull her hand back and suck in her breath. She stood there for a moment, staring at her fingers as if they no longer belonged to her. The first sound came late one evening. She was alone in the house. The silence felt thick, heavy, pressing against her ears. Even her own breathing sounded loud. Then she heard it. A low sound, barely there. She stopped moving. The cloth slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. She did not bend to pick it up. The sound came again. Slow, uneven, like someone breathing through pain. Ammara's chest tightened. Her stomach turned cold. She pressed her palm against the wall to steady herself. "No," she whispered, though she did not know who she was speaking to. She looked down the hallway. The locked door waited. Her legs felt weak. Every instinct told her to run, to leave the house and never come back. But another thought followed quickly, sharp and cruel. If she left, she would lose the job. If she lost the job, her mother would suffer. Fear argued with fear inside her. She turned away. That night, she cleaned without looking down the hallway again. She counted her steps. She focused on small things. The edge of a table. The sound of water in the sink. When she finally left, her body shook with exhaustion. At home, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing the sound again in her memory. Breathing. Waiting. The next night, it was worse. She was wiping the floor near the hallway when she heard movement. A slow scrape, a sound like something being dragged. Her breath caught in her throat. She backed away until her shoulders touched the wall. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. The door was still locked. She could see the handle clearly. Nothing moved, and yet she felt watched. Not by cameras, not by people, by something behind that door. Tears filled her eyes, not from fear alone, but from helplessness. She felt small, trapped between need and danger. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "Be careful." Ammara closed her eyes. "I cannot do this," she whispered. But she returned the next night, and the night after that. Each time the sound came and went, sometimes soft, sometimes stronger, always enough to remind her there was something in that room, and whatever it was, it knew she was there. As she left one night, she looked back once more at the end of the hallway. For the first time, curiosity rose above fear. A terrible thought formed in her mind. What if the locked door was not keeping her out? What if it was keeping something in? And what if, one day, it decided to come out on its own? The night it happened did not feel different at first. Ammara arrived at the mansion just before sunset, as she always did. The sky was fading into deep blue, and the trees stood still, as if even the wind was waiting. She changed into her uniform. She tied her hair back. She took a slow breath. Everything followed the same routine. She cleaned the living room. She wiped the long table. She moved carefully, quietly. But as she stepped into the hallway, something felt wrong. The silence was thinner than usual. Not empty, alert. She walked slowly, her shoes making almost no sound on the floor. Her eyes moved ahead without permission, drawn to the end of the hallway. The door? Her heart skipped. The door was open. Not wide, just enough. A small dark line where there should have been none. Ammara stopped breathing. Her body froze where it stood. The cleaning cloth slipped from her hand and landed softly on the floor, but the sound felt loud in her ears. The door had never been open. Not once. She waited. Nothing moved. No sound came from inside. No breathing. No scraping. Only silence, deeper than before. Her first thought was simple. Leave. She could turn around. She could walk back to the changing room, collect her bag, and go home. No one would stop her. But another thought followed, slow and dangerous. If the door was open, someone had made a mistake, and mistakes in this house were rare. Her chest tightened. Her hands felt cold. She pressed her fingers together to stop them from shaking. She took one step forward. The hallway light flickered. She stopped again. Her mother's face filled her mind. Pale, tired, waiting for medicine. Ammara swallowed hard. "This is not my business," she whispered. Yet her feet moved. Each step felt heavier than the last. Her heart beat so loudly she was sure it could be heard. She reached the door and stood just outside it. The room beyond was dark, darker than the hallway. The air felt different, thick, like it had been closed for too long. A faint smell reached her nose. Old air, dust, something bitter beneath it. She did not enter. She stood there, balanced between two choices. If she stepped inside, everything might change. If she walked away, the question would stay with her forever. Her hand rose slowly. She rested her fingers against the edge of the door. Cold. The same deep cold she remembered from the handle. Her breath came fast now, shallow and tight. Fear pressed against her chest, but beneath it, something else stirred. Anger. Why lock a room so tightly? Why warn her so harshly? Why hide something in silence? The house remained still. No footsteps, no voices. The billionaire was not home. For the first time since she started this job, Ammara felt alone in the mansion. Truly alone. Her fingers tightened on the door. She closed her eyes. Just one look, she told herself. Just enough to understand. Then she stepped forward and crossed the line she could never uncross. The room was darker than she expected. Not empty darkness, but the kind that felt held in place, as if it had been breathing the same air for years. Ammara stood just inside the doorway, afraid to move, afraid that the floor might react to her presence. She waited. Nothing happened. Her eyes slowly adjusted. The first thing she noticed was how small the room was. Much smaller than the rest of the mansion. No windows, no decorations, no warmth. A single lamp hung from the ceiling. Turned off, the walls were bare except for faint marks that looked like scratches. Not deep, not violent. Just enough to suggest that someone had once pressed their fingers there again and again. Her throat tightened. In the center of the room stood a chair. Old. Wooden. Uncomfortable. It faced the wall. Ammara's heart began to race. She took a small step forward. The sound of her shoe echoed too loudly. She froze, listening. Still nothing? Then she saw the table. A metal table against the far wall. On it lay stacks of papers, neatly arranged. Too neat. The kind of order that came from control, not care. She leaned closer without touching them. Names, dates, photographs. Her breath caught. The photographs were of people, women, young, black, poor. Some stood outside apartment buildings she recognized. Some waited at bus stops she had stood at herself. Some walked with their heads down, like they had learned not to be seen. Like her. Her hands began to shake. She felt dizzy. Why were they here? Why were their lives laid out like records? Her eyes moved across the papers. Cleaning schedules. Addresses. Notes written in neat handwriting. Reliable. Quiet. No family support. Financial pressure. Ammara felt her knees weaken. This was not random. This was not coincidence. She backed away slowly, her heart pounding so hard it hurt. Her mind raced, trying to understand. Then she noticed the mirror. It was mounted on the wall opposite the chair. At first, she thought it was just glass. Then she realized it was one way. Her stomach turned. Someone had sat in that chair. Someone had been watched. Her breath came in sharp, uneven pulls. Tears burned her eyes, but she forced them back. She turned to leave, and then she saw it. Her own name, written on a paper near the bottom of the stack. Ammara, age 19, Lives with sick mother, desperate, her vision blurred. This job had not saved her. It had selected her. Her legs trembled as she stepped back toward the door. Every instinct screamed to run, to escape, to never return. But before she could reach the hallway, a sound came from behind her. A soft click. The lamp above flickered on. Light flooded the room, and in the reflection of the mirror, Ammara saw a movement, not her own. Someone else was watching. The light stayed on. Ammara did not move. Her body felt frozen, as if the air itself had hardened around her. The room no longer felt small. It felt closed, watched, alive in a way it had never been before. Her eyes were fixed on the mirror. She did not want to turn around because she already knew someone was there. A shadow appeared behind her in the glass, tall, still, unhurried. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard it stole her breath. "Do not move," a calm voice said. It was not loud. It did not need to be. Ammara's hands trembled at her sides. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The voice came again, closer this time. "You were warned." Slow footsteps crossed the floor behind her. Each step was measured, controlled, as if the man walking toward her had never hurried in his life. She finally turned. He stood near the doorway. The billionaire. He looked different in person. Older, sharper. His eyes were dark and unreadable, like someone used to watching people break before they spoke. "You opened a door that does not belong to you," he said. I'm sorry," Ammara whispered. Her voice sounded small, fragile, like it might disappear if she spoke again. He glanced at the papers on the table, then back at her. "You are curious," he said. "That is unfortunate." Her legs felt weak. She leaned against the wall to stay standing. "I didn't mean to," she said. The door was open. He smiled slightly, a smile without warmth. "Yes," he said, "that happens." The door behind him closed slowly. The sound echoed in the room. Ammara flinched. Her mind raced. She thought of her mother, alone in the apartment, waiting. She thought of the landlord's paper still folded in her pocket. "I didn't take anything," she said quickly. "I didn't touch anything." He studied her face. "I know," he replied. "That is why you are still standing." Her breath shook. "What is this place?" she asked before fear could stop her. He walked to the table and picked up one of the files. "A record," he said, "of lives no one else records." He turned a page calmly. "People like you," he continued. "Invisible, replaceable, forgotten." Her chest burned. "You're wrong," she said softly. He looked at her. "Am I?" he asked. Silence filled the room. Then he said her name. "Ammara." Her blood ran cold. "You should not know my name," she said. He tilted his head. "I know many things about you," he replied. "Where you live, why you work, how afraid you are of losing this job." Tears filled her eyes, but she did not let them fall. "You were chosen carefully," he said, "just like the others." Her hands curled into fists. "I didn't choose this," she said. "No," he agreed. "You did not." He walked closer. "Now," he said calmly, "you must choose something else." Her heart pounded. "What?" she asked. He stopped an arm's length away. "Silence," he said. "Or consequences." The word hung in the air, heavy and final. Ammara felt the weight of it press down on her chest. Silence meant safety. Silence meant money. Silence meant survival. But silence also meant becoming part of the room. She looked at the mirror again, at the chair, at the papers with her name. For the first time since entering the mansion, fear shifted into something sharper. Resolve. She lifted her head and met his eyes. And in that moment, the billionaire realized something had changed. She was no longer just a poor girl who cleaned his floors. She was a witness, and witnesses are dangerous. The billionaire did not raise his voice. He did not threaten her. That made it worse. He stepped away from her and walked toward the table. Picking up a thin folder from the top of the stack, he held it lightly, as if it meant nothing. But Ammara felt her chest. "This," he said, tapping the folder once, "is where you began." She shook her head slowly. "You don't know anything about me," she said. He opened the folder. Inside were old papers, older than the rest. The edges were yellowed, the ink slightly faded. "Your mother never told you," he said calmly. Ammara's breath caught. "My mother?" she whispered. He looked up at her. "She was not always sick," he said. "She was not always poor." Her heart began to race. "Stop," Ammara said. But he continued. "Before you were born," he said, "she worked for a family far wealthier than you can imagine. Not as a cleaner, not as a servant." He turned a page. "She was a caretaker," he said, "for a woman who could not have children." Ammara felt dizzy. "That's a lie," she said, but her voice lacked strength. He slid a photograph across the table. Ammara stared at it. A younger woman stood in the picture, stronger, healthier. Her eyes were familiar. It was her mother. Beside her stood another woman, dressed in expensive clothes, her hand resting on her stomach. Ammara's hands trembled. "She carried a child for them," the billionaire said quietly. "A child meant to be taken away." Ammara shook her head violently. "No," she whispered. "My mother is my mother. Yes, she loved you. That was the problem." He leaned against the table. "She ran," he continued. "She disappeared with you. She broke every agreement she signed." Tears spilled down Ammara's face now. "You're lying," she said. He looked at her without emotion. "She paid for it," he said. "They took everything from her, her health, her safety, her future." Ammara pressed her hands to her mouth. All the nights her mother cried quietly. All the fear, all the sickness, it wasn't bad luck. It was punishment. "You were never meant to live the life you live now," he said. "You were meant to belong somewhere else." Her legs gave way, and she sank into the chair, the same chair others had sat in. The realization crushed her. Her poverty was not an accident. Her struggle was not random. It was designed. Why are you telling me this? She whispered. He looked at her carefully. Because, he said, you have two identities. One the world sees, and one people are still searching for. Her heart pounded. They will come, he added, eventually. She looked up sharply. Who? She asked. He closed the folder. The people your mother ran from, he said. And when they do, you will have to decide who you really are. Silence filled the room. Ammara felt something break inside her. Her past was not empty. It was stolen. And now that she knew the truth, she understood something terrifying. The locked room had never been about control. It had been about waiting. And she was no longer invisible. The room felt smaller now, not because the walls had moved, but because the truth had filled every corner. Ammara sat in the chair, her hands resting in her lap, fingers clenched tightly together as if holding herself in place. Silence pressed down on her. The billionaire watched her without urgency. He had already said what he needed to say. He knew the weight of it would do the rest. You understand now, he said quietly, why this room exists. Ammara did not answer. Her mind was spinning. Her mother's tired eyes, the sickness, the fear, the life of running without knowing why. All of it suddenly made sense. This information, he continued, is dangerous, not because it is dramatic, but because it changes power. She looked up at him. What do you want from me? She asked. He stepped closer, stopping just short of the table. What I want is simple, he said. You continue your work. You forget what you saw. You forget what you learned. Her chest tightened. And my mother? She asked. She will continue receiving the medicine you can afford, he replied calmly, as long as nothing changes. The meaning was clear. Silence meant survival. Silence meant safety. Silence meant her mother stayed alive. Truth meant uncertainty. She looked at the mirror again. The chair? The files? The names? How many others had sat where she sat now? How many had chosen silence? You have no proof, he added, only knowledge. And knowledge without power is a burden. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not wipe them away. If I tell, she said softly, you will destroy us. He did not deny it. I will protect myself, he said, as anyone in my position would. Her heart ached. This was not a choice between right and wrong. It was a choice between fear and courage, between the life she knew and the life that had been stolen from her before she could speak. She stood slowly, her legs unsteady. I was invisible, she said, and I survived. He watched her closely. But now I see, she continued, and seeing changes things. He smiled faintly. Be careful, he said. Vision can be expensive. She took a step back toward the door. I will not speak, she said. Relief crossed his face, quick and controlled. But, she continued, I will not forget. The smile faded. You underestimate forgetting, he said. She met his eyes. And you underestimate memory, she replied. She turned and walked out of the room. The hallway felt different now. lighter, dangerous in a new way. As she changed out of her uniform, her hand shook, not from fear, but from decision. She was going home, to her mother, to the truth, to a future that had not been written yet. Silence would protect her today, but silence would not protect her forever. And as she stepped into the night air, Ammara knew one thing with certainty. This was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of her becoming someone the world could no longer ignore. Ammara did not sleep that night. She lay beside her mother, listening to her breathing, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. Every sound felt louder now. Every shadow felt closer. Her mother stirred. "You're home early," she murmured. Ammara swallowed. "Yes," she said softly. "I just wanted to sit with you." Her mother opened her eyes and studied her face. "You look different," she said, like someone who has seen something they cannot unsee. Ammara turned her face away. "I'll explain one day," she whispered, "when it's safe." Her mother reached out and took her hand. "You don't have to carry everything alone," she said. Ammara closed her eyes. If only that were true. The days that followed were quiet, too quiet. The mansion remained open to her. The rules stayed the same. The pay arrived on time. But the house no longer felt powerful. It felt afraid. She noticed small changes. The cameras shifted positions. The man in the suit watched her more closely. The locked rooms stayed locked, but now guards passed the hallway. They were not watching the room. They were watching her. Ammara continued to clean, but she was no longer invisible. At home, she began to ask questions, small ones at first, about the past, about places her mother had lived, about names she had never heard. At first, her mother avoided them. Then, one evening, she cried, not quietly, openly. "I wanted to protect you." Her mother, "I thought if I never spoke of it, the world would forget." Ammara held her. "The world didn't forget," she said. "It was waiting." Her mother told her everything. The contracts, the escape, the punishment. The life they lived was not the result of weakness. It was the cost of love. That truth changed Ammara. She stopped walking with her head down. She started saving copies of documents, writing dates, recording details. She did not expose anyone. Not yet. Weeks later, the billionaire stopped coming to the mansion. Then months. The payments continued, but the silence grew tense. One night, Ammara stood in front of the locked room for the last time. She did not touch the door. She smiled, because she no longer needed to. She had taken something far more dangerous than proof. She had taken control of her story. Ammara eventually left the mansion, not running, not hiding, prepared. She found work elsewhere, harder, less money, but cleaner. Her mother's health improved slowly, not because of wealth, but because fear no longer lived in their home. But truth did not explode. It waited. Truth often does. And one day, when the people who had power grew careless, Ammara was ready. Because silence had taught her how to survive. and knowledge had taught her how to fight. She was no longer just a poor girl. She was no longer invisible. She was a reminder that even the quietest lives carry stories powerful enough to shake locked rooms. And once a door like that opens, it never truly closes again. Before you judge her decision, ask yourself one question. If you were poor, powerless, and finally held a secret that could destroy a powerful man, what would you do?